Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Race Department podcast, Season 2, Episode 2. I'm Paul Glover, I'm your host as always, and this week I'm joined in the RD virtual studio. I don't know if anybody's quite yet quarantined, but let's find out. Danny, how are you doing?
I'm good. We just said we were not going to mention any stuff like this.
Well, you know, it's topical, isn't it? You know, like, as you listen to this, you might be quarantined because of the coronavirus, or you might not. But how are things with you?
I'm all good. In Scotland, the coronavirus is too afraid of Scotland, it seems. So far, so good.
Yeah, it's all the timber they chuck, I think, isn't it? What's that called? That sport in Scotland?
They throw some the logs.
Yeah, I've completely forgot what it's called. Yeah, I remember watching that on TV when I was a kid.
The Highlander games, something.
Yeah. It genuinely used to be on television when we were younger. A man who can verify that for me is also squeezed into the RD virtual studio, but obviously at a 2-meter radius. It's Paul Jeffrey.
Yo, how you doing, man?
I'm very good, thank you. How about you?
Excellent. Yes, I'm all right, my friend. Thank you.
Do you remember the Highland Games on the TV when we were younger? Like the Scots would throw the big timber bits of tree in the air.
That was in the glory days of Grandstand, when they had all the sports that nobody cares about and none of the sports you wanted to watch.
Yeah, like the ones on the what was it? The one the rocks with the bikes, and they do all like what was that?
The rocks and the bikes.
You know, where they used to jump in between like obstacles on motorbikes.
God,
and keep them balanced and things like that. You know,
trials bike.
Trials bike.
Come on, that's actually quite cool, man.
Yeah, it is that.
It was. I used to love that, but you don't get things like that anymore on television. So
it is something called the internet, man. Get yourself on that. There's all sorts of good stuff to watch.
Yeah, there's too much of the P word for me. Right, and finally, last but not least, he's stuck in Italy. It's Davide.
Stuck in my home. Hello.
Yeah, cabin fever yet?
It's starting to become a little tiring, to be stuck in your home for a week. But we have to do it for the benefit of everyone. So
yeah. And you've got sim racing to keep you company, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
and also, just imagine if this was like 20 years ago, you wouldn't have the volume of technology that you do now to keep you connected.
Yeah. I was thinking about it today. Yeah, we're very lucky today with sims for us that we enjoy this kind of entertainment, we can say, but also with all the streaming platforms and so on.
Yes.
You're not stuck just with a book, which is fine.
No, indeed. And the thing is as well, I mean, you get to play ACC, don't you?
No, I leave that to you, Paul. I leave that to you.
Oh, you completely missed what I did there.
You'll see when the GT4s are gonna come out. I will beat
end of the year, like winter. What are you waiting for?
No, that's the British trucks. GT4s are coming this summer. You're the ACC expert and don't even know when the DLCs come out. Shame on you.
I read it yesterday. You're right. GT4
and ladies and gentlemen,
DLC.
That's what we call burn.
Yeah, summer 2020. Yeah, it'll probably be more like winter though, to be fair. But yeah, summer 2020 currently. So
GT4.
I mean, yeah, it should be more cars. Great addition to a great game. Okay, so in this episode, we've got a few items for you. So we're going to talk about Drive to Survive Season 2. Most of us have watched it now, so we're going to give our opinions on a few things. Then we're going to talk about Automobilista. I've been told to pronounce it correctly on the forum. So Automobilista, because apparently I kept missing the Mo. So I'm going to emphasise that going forward. Updates, and we're going to discuss our first impressions. It's very early days for the game, but good to get everyone's opinion on that. Then we're going to move on to F1 Manager game has been announced, and it's actually really interesting because there was a game back in the day. I can't remember what it was called, but I used to love it. And there's been Motorsport Manager recently on iPads and on the iPhone and so forth, which made its way to PC.
It was Grand Prix Manager, Paul.
Grand Prix Manager. That was a great game back in the day.
1 and 2.
And then we've got Dirt Rally 2 Colin McRae pack. Recently watched a great piece for Top Gear in the UK about Colin McRae. So it's good to see they've added some of his content. And then the main topic this week, we're going to talk about single series versus jack of all trades games. And that one has come out of Davide's brain. So if it's terrible, we blame him. Right, okay, let's get on to item number 1. Let's start with Davide here because we had some fun in the WhatsApp group talking about this because Mr. Ferrari, it genuinely was an absolute pleasure to see Mercedes and Ferrari. We're going to be careful here not to do too many spoilers for those that haven't watched it. Mm-hmm. But wasn't it great to see Ferrari and Mercedes finally, in the series? I know it's only season 2, but they were really open, I felt.
Yeah, pretty much. I particularly like the about Mercedes the episode which was I'll try not to spoiler too much, but it's past F1 season, so pretty much everyone knows how it ended.
Not spoiling the seasons much, but kind of
the content.
The content itself.
Yeah. So if you guys remember last season, the German GP, during which Mercedes was celebrating their 125th anniversary. Things went pretty bad for them. It
went pretty bad for everybody because it was so wet.
Yeah,
and
sure.
You got that last bit, the last bit of the final section of the track there at Hungaroring, where there's like a quarter-mile strip, isn't there, which is really, really slippery.
Yeah, of course, it was a tough race for everyone, but for them it was considerable as a failure because they went there to celebrate, to dominate, to show their power. Instead, Bottas retired and Hamilton came close to retire his car too. And in the Netflix series, you'll have a pretty interesting background to what happened during that GP, and I particularly like the human aspect, the emotions behind Toto Wolff, which might come a bit as a rough character, but he's a human as we all are, and it was nice to see his emotions come out in a very natural way during the episode. So that's something I very liked, and that was missing in the first season.
Yeah, I agree. I thought he came across really, really well in that, especially when Paul, they started talking about Niki Lauda. That was always going to be mentioned. I don't remember there being a mention about Charlie Whiting because we just passed the year since his passing.
Can you believe that's a year ago? That's gone so fast. No, I think there was, they did kind of scoop over that one a little bit. It were nice to see a rare failure. No, rephrase that. It wasn't nice to see the failure, but it was actually. But it were nice to have the cameras on while Mercedes had a rare failure. Some interesting background. But I think overall, I probably didn't quite enjoy the season as much as I did season 1.
Okay.
It felt a little bit more autobiographical. Oh God, what's the word? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. Everybody knows what you mean. Yeah. And everybody who's listening to this is
laughing at my incompetence.
It's with you on this, and sometimes I struggle with certain words, and it's quite funny. So.
I need to go for smaller words. I'm from the north of England, but it seemed to follow the racing season more than the personalities behind it than season 1 for me. So it was more great for a race fan like myself, kind of like an interesting way to do a season review almost. Whereas last year, the track action was kind of secondary and it was more the personalities and introducing you to people, etc. Bit less of that this time round, I thought personally, but entertaining nonetheless.
Yeah, it was really, really good. And I think the best thing about it, and I know that Danny hasn't watched it, but for his benefit, I think the best thing about it was it reminded me of the great things that actually occurred during last season, David. And I think that's the thing for me, is that last season was fantastic. It's just so many curveballs that came out of nowhere.
Yeah, because during the first season, they focused more about the underdog stories, we can say, in a sense, the stories behind those drivers that maybe not many people care about, but instead are very, very interesting. For example, we talked at length of Roman Grosjean psychological issues, we can say, problems in accepting some failures of the car, and at other times some failures in his driving. But for example, another cool topic during the first season was the Sainz-Alonso battle, which during the 2018 season I honestly didn't think about much, but through the Netflix series it became evident to me how it was a very interesting fight between them two. So yeah, the first season was more echoing Paul's words that the first season was probably more interesting than the second. I think that because in the former season, as I said, they focused more about those little stories that are human, and so get you involved in the narration. While instead the latter was more about, you know, the glory, the fame, the speed, the power, and it's interesting, but you get less involved, I think.
Season 3 is just going to be a load of mechanics sat in a hotel room in Australia for 14 days. And then the FIA trying to make decisions, and then maybe we might get 2 races at the end of the year, if we're lucky. So that could be interesting. Let's see how Netflix cope with that.
I know we kind of said we weren't going to talk about the coronavirus, but, you know, it's going to have an effect on Season 3 and, you know, generally motorsport, you know, in general. So it will be an interesting outcome to how they play it, and whether they give up at all, or, you know, at this time we don't know whether there's going to be a 2020 to 21 season, and whether the next race we'll see is in for the 2021 to 22 season.
But a bit off subject, Paul, how cool would it be if, as they're proposing, Monaco would be the first race of the year? That'd be amazing.
Back to the golden days.
It would be, yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I love Monaco because it's a traditional circuit, but it doesn't really allow itself to have for great racing. You know.
No, but with unsorted cars, rusty drivers, first race condensed year.
Could be a lot of collisions. Yeah.
Oh, it could be a very interesting. They're the kind of things that you need, though, that turn up bizarre results, because there's no overtaking in Monaco, but I can still remember Olivier Panis winning in '96 when everyone retired and crashed, or mechanicals or whatever.
You get something like that, don't you?
Yeah, you imagine that.
You get the win. One thing I wanted to kind of talk to Davide about was Mattia Benito, because I felt that he came across well, just as Wolf did in Mercedes, and you being literally if we cut you, you bleed Ferrari. That must have been quite nice to see, to kind of get to know him a bit more.
It's interesting to me that you say that he came across as well as Wolf did, because instead I thought that he had less screen time than Wolf, or at least maybe the same time, but less in depth compared to the Mercedes boss.
I liked about him is that I feel like Ferrari have kind of always been the Ferrari who kind of sit in the shadows a little bit, do what they do, and have always been a little bit closed. And I think he opens Ferrari up a bit more and makes them sometimes appear a bit more human. I don't know if anybody else agrees with me on that, but I like him and I've warmed to him, and I think that means I warm to Ferrari more.
That's great to hear, because you have to cheer for Ferrari because it's the fastest and strongest team.
now you're just talking absolute rubbish. I mean, you've taken it to the extreme. I pay one little bit of compliment. And,
no, it's Paul. It's natural.
Sorry. I'm not a Mercedes fan. I mean,
Mercedes.
I have always been a British team fan, so McLaren and Williams. Definitely always swayed more towards McLaren, but then I wasn't always a big fan of Ron Dennis, and I'm not really a big fan of Zach Brown either, but he's getting results. There's something about it. But one thing I think we both agree, I think we all agreed on actually, was watching Christian Horner try to be...
I love that man.
Yeah, he interviews really well, and I like him, like when he talks to the camera.
Can we have him on the podcast, please?
Oh, well, we can certainly try, Paul. Get on it. And
Christian, we're available. Drop me a PM at RaceDepartment.com. You've got nothing better to do, so just go for it, man.
And I think that Christian Horner, watching him sometimes trying to talk to his drivers, and where it was first Pierre Gasly and then it turned into Alex Albon halfway through the season, and I actually thought they handled that I thought that was a really good episode. I thought Alex Albon came across really well.
Yeah, I don't know if you agree with me, but I noticed a couple of things. First one, that Horner seems like the typical manager with no emotions, just business. Instead, during the season, you can see that he cares about his drivers. He cares about, for example, Gasly. And the fact that he was suffering, he couldn't perform because he was, he was banging his own head on the wall. And you can see that he cared about the guy. But at the same time, he had to do the drastic decision to cut him out and get Albon on board. But Horner is another one as Wolf that... they showed his human character more. A question, but the Horner's wife is the Spice Girl.
Yeah, Jerry Halliwell. Yeah.
Okay, because I wasn't sure if sure that it was actually her. So
no.
Nice.
It is. Yeah, no, it is Jerry Halliwell.
So did anybody think? Oh, sorry, Paul. Go on, mate. Carry on.
No, the thing about Christian Horner I just found funny is that when he was trying to kind of like give his driver's pep talk, he just looked like an awkward dad, and he's trying to be it's like he's trying to be their friend but also be their boss at the same time, and it's just a little bit cringeworthy, and that's what I found really interesting. And then you've got Steiner at Haas, who obviously in season 1, I think he said like people were randomly going up to him and asking them to shout some of the things that he'd been saying in season 1. He become quite a fan with the F1 fans, but not just F1 fans, I don't think, but also see how their season was unfolding and the challenges that they were facing and the frustrations from inside the camp. I kind of disagree with your guys' sentiment that I thought season 2 was just as good as season 1. And in some cases, I thought it was better. In other cases, I think season 1 is better. So, yeah, I mean, but it's always hard to follow on when you do a series, whether it be something like this or Breaking Bad or whatever, or Sopranos or whatever. Something that's so highly regarded, and then to follow on for that, look at films when they do, like Terminator 1, Terminator 2, Terminator 3.
Terminator 2 was awesome.
And then Terminator 12.
Yeah, the best.
It's hard to follow on. We're on to blooming Fast and Furious 9, which has been delayed. I mean,
how they managed to make one film out of the Fast and Furious franchise mystifies me. The fact they've managed to do 9 without a storyline is legendary. Going. Oh, I hate that kind of junk.
I know you do. Anyway, you're going to say something, Mr. Jeffrey.
No, I'm just going to say I found it quite amusing that I'm not really spoiling anything for people. They showed Alex Albon, who's obviously a young rookie, just signed for Toro Rosso and is living in rented accommodation with his mum and a couple of sisters and everything. Really nice young kid. And he's like, oh, yeah, then Albon signs for Red Bull. It's like, hey, guys, this is my new apartment in Monaco. And it's like, it's gone from being like a youth that's achieved nothing to being like, I've got an apartment in Monaco the second I sign a Red Bull contract. I thought that just amused me a little bit, that it's not took him long.
I loved how the fact that he's so close to his family as well. I thought that was kind of nice to see that side of it. But he's living at home, like somewhere. I don't know, quite sure where. He was
living at home in Surrey, but he's got his little bachelor pad in Monaco now.
He'd walk out the house and there was an Aston Martin on his driveway, and it just looked completely out of place. As where Carlos Sainz is driving a McLaren, which I think I'd rather have that over an Aston myself.
I'm an Aston Martin.
I know you are. That's the car you keep choosing in ACC. So,
it is not the fastest, but it's an Aston, so it'll do.
Okay. Anything you guys want to add on season 2 before we bring this to a close?
Mercedes won the championship.
Oh no, you spoiled me the end.
No,
come on. No, I can't watch it anymore.
Play the game. Play the game, Paul. Oh. Sorry, everybody. You can't take these guys anywhere. Okay. All right. So
literally nowadays you can't take us anywhere.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay. So that's season 2 of Drive to Survive review done. Next up, Automobilista 2 beta was released. I think a couple of days, or maybe the day after we released the last episode of the podcast. There's been 3 updates released so far. I know who I'm going to start with on this one. Mr. Jeffrey. First impressions, sir.
Well, sir, firstly, congratulations on pronouncing Automobilista right.
Thank you,
all we've got to do now is work on you saying beta, not beta, but we'll get there. That's for another day.
Beta. Sorry. Beta. Yeah, I've turned American, haven't I? I was practicing in front of the mirror with Automobilista. So, yeah.
Nice. Just call it AMS, man. A lot easier.
It is a lot easier.
Yeah, winner. Yeah, 3 updates. Well, 3 main beta releases. So the initial one, then 2, then 3. Number 4 comes out on Thursday of this week, so maybe around the time the podcast goes live.
So they're really keeping up with that, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're not letting it because I mean, if you compare this to the updates coming out for ACC.
Well, the thing is, they've got a really solid roadmap. So at the moment, what's happening? Sorry, I've just had like a Windows wants to update and restart message come on my screen, which vexed me slightly. Right,
that's okay.
The thing is, I believe the next one that's coming will be the last update that comes out before it goes into the public early access beta phase, whatever you want to call it. There's been a few hot fixes as well, and it's come on a long way, in my opinion, since it first released. When it first released, I did not like it at all. I'm well aware that it's unfinished and there's still plenty of development miles to go. Not just public release, but even as far as taking it to next 2 or 3 years worth of development. So I'm well aware of that, but I just didn't like the underlying physics of the cars. I didn't like the art direction, the handling, the force feedback. Basically didn't like it. But it's come on a long way since then. I'm still not entirely convinced about it. I still prefer AMS1 at this stage, but again, I'm aware that AMS1 has had 4-5 years, even if you include GameShot car. So I have every faith that Ryza will knock it out of the park, but it's not quite where I want it to be personally, from my point of view, at this moment in time.
Okay, all right, that's nicely critiqued about being too harsh. I like that. Danny, over to you.
Well, I haven't tried it yet. I went on a game and I saw the menus and so on. I just felt like, okay, I plan to do the same as I did with ACC. I'm going to leave it the beta for whoever wants to try it. And then I thought once it's out or once it's stable enough or people aren't complaining about small and major issues, I'll get on and start enjoying it. Because to be honest, I just don't have patience to try a few cars, a few tracks, and then the game crashing or my wheel not working. I prefer to wait a little bit longer and then hopefully enjoy a little better release kind of experience, let's say.
Okay. All right, and have you been impressed with the development speed that they've had so far on the game?
Well, yeah, they've been keeping up to date with these staged updates. Of course, it's still around 2 or 3 months later than what they had initially planned, which was the end of last year. But still, I'm not pointing fingers or complaining. I'm just it comes out when it comes out, and I'm glad to see that people are working on it and the community is behind them, which is what we need basically.
Okay, all right, thank you. And Davide, what are your initial thoughts?
Honestly, I didn't like it too. Just as Paul was saying, I didn't find anything particularly good about it in the first release, and I haven't tried the second and third one. I am planning to try the fourth, the one before the public release. Honestly, I think that for me, the main problem with the AMS2 is the fact that they are trying to taking their usual approach to their new sims or their new products in general, which means taking all of the old assets and updating them to the new title. That's what happened with Stalker Extreme. That's what happened with AMS. All the various iterations. It's always been a sort of a cumulative experience for them. But with such a drastic change with the engine, which is a lot more modern than the G Motor 1.5 that they used for so far, I think that it is a mistake to try and do the same thing that they did in the past, to try and conserve as many assets as they can, to have as much content as they can possibly have. This time it is a mistake because you can see in some vehicles that they are not on par with the engine itself. It shows that they are old, and it's basically for everyone who hasn't tried the AMS2, not with all of the cars, but in general, this is what happens. If you have Assetto Corsa, imagine when you try an air factor mod that's been cheaply converted to Assetto Corsa. That's exactly the feel. Better in the physics department, of course. It's still a RZA product. Physics, it's perfect in its own way. Of course, it needs to be still polished. It shows some madness engine shortcomings, but it's great anyways. But from a model and texture point of view, it's just the same as taking an air factor mod and cheaply convert it to Assetto Corsa, because they are old assets and they don't work very well with a modern engine as the Madness engine in its latest iteration. So for me, sorry for the long talk, but in short, for me that's the real problem with AMS2. The thing that they're trying to get as much content as they can by recycling the old assets that they have, which is the same mistake that SMS did up until Project Cars 1. They were recycling assets from Need for Speed Shift and sometimes even older games than that. If you take on a new engine, you have to start from scratch for me to make it work properly.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I mean, you guys haven't said it, but I'm gonna say it. For me, it feels a little bit like too much like Project Cars 2. You know, I don't want to be controversial, but I want to be honest.
Yeah, then I have something to say about this as well.
Yeah, and
which is something that. Sorry, go on.
Go on. No, so it's fine. No, it's just that, and also, I mean, I get like a bit like what Davide just picked up there. You know, obviously they're reusing assets, so you can tell they're reusing some of the assets from the Madness engine because there are some of the the fonts and the notifications come up that, you know, I was sitting there driving it. I haven't driven the latest release. I'll be honest. I only drove the game on the first beta, so this is what I'm judging it on. But it did remind me of Project Cars 2. Do you know the most annoying thing I found about it when I first booted up was the menu. I kept quitting the game because I don't think the menu is very clear when you're in the menu system. I found that really annoying.
They've tweaked that now, though, so that's no bad.
Oh, harsh. Oh.
No,
wow.
I mean, they sorted it. So the back
okay,
button
all
is what I meant.
So I was like, where's he going with that?
No,
Okay.
they've tweaked it. So when you press the back button, you have to quit properly this time rather than...
Yeah. No, it was like the back button was like a quit button. I'm like, what the hell was that all about? That really annoyed me. I kept hitting that to go back. I'm like, we don't go... Oh, why have you quit me? What? Yeah, that was the But I mean, I love the way it looked, like in general, like the graphics and thought, and like what you guys have kind of touched on with the handling. It's not where it needs to be, and it's not going to be because it is a beta. So if we roll back a year and a bit now, I think to when ACC first came into early release in Steam, and I think we touched on it in the last pod. You know, the game is completely different now. Since we did the last podcast, you know, Paul and I both took part in a club race at Suzuka, and during the race in ACC, it started raining, and it was genuinely such a thrill to be driving. I was laughing. I mean, I was performing badly because I wasn't like. I mean, I got a really good start, blah blah blah. But anyway, we'll talk about this more later in the pod, but. You know, the game's come on leaps and bounds, and that's what I'm praying is going to happen with AMS 2, because I kind of missed AMS 1. I kind of missed that hype. I don't know how I missed it. I got stock car racing and so forth. I played those games, played other Razor games. I think they're still in my Steam library somewhere. But I've got such high expectations for AMS 2 that I'm not letting go of that yet. Yeah, it started off in a bit of a bumpy ride, but I think it could only get better, as Paul has already alluded to. And if I'm not mistaken, I think you guys have also spoken about how AMS 1, when it first came out, probably came out with a few bumps and a few kinks as well. So yeah, I'm still optimistic that the game's going to change and hopefully start looking a little bit less and being a little bit less like Project Cars 2 for me. Danny, you got something to say?
Yeah, it's a bit on this driving aspect and how it feels compared to other games. And to go a bit on a tangent, it's something we talked about on our WhatsApp group.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm interested to see if people actually feel the same as well. If they perhaps may or may not have the G-motor syndrome, which means that we've been playing games based on some version of or iteration of the G-motor since Race 07, GTR2, etc. R-Factor 2 with the better G-motor, etc. But we still all coming from the same philosophy of coding. So I wonder if people got in their brain used to driving a certain way that these games make cars behave, so that then once we move to another game, especially EMS going from a G-motor game to a Madness game, people are expecting to feel the same way that they were driving on a G-motor game, and then they find people say, oh, it feels like Project Cars 2. Maybe because they were so used to how the car behaves in a G-motor and thought, okay, this is how it should behave. And another thing is, so it's actually interesting to see if people actually feel it's so, or if they just feel like, okay, that's just wrong, the way cars behave on Madness engine, who knows. But the thing is that also that what Rise Studios did back in the day was take R-Factor 1 and polish slightly, quite a lot, and make it their game. And now what they're doing is they're taking Project Cars 2 at some point and polishing it. And I don't know how much they can just copy/paste their physics from R Factor 1 into Madness 3.0, or if they have to work with Madness 3.0 and tweak it. That's probably why it feels like Project Cars 2. I don't know. So that's why maybe this difference of handling is so apparent, because maybe it's just two different engines and they're tweaking the engine rather than bringing over everything they had. But actually, I don't know how they are doing this, but it could be one of the reasons, at least.
Yeah, Paul, do you want to give your thought? I mean, I suspect you're going to be the best person to, whether you agree or disagree with that.
Well, I mean, I agree with a lot of what everybody said, and obviously I'm part of the... Obviously, hence I'm driving the game. Part of the early backer thing, so I see the Riser 51 sub-forum and the beta testing bits and all that jazz. And there's a heck of a lot of work going on behind the scenes. There's a lot of community have been great with some of the really detailed reports, from small stuff to major stuff. There's been a lot of interaction with the developers. You can see the progress. I mean, for you guys that have not played version 3 yet, that will be markedly different to you, I'm sure, than the versions that you last tried. So it's going the right way. Riser, Renato and team are exceptional at listening to the community and taking things on board. There's some things that I've suggested directly to Renato that have come in. There's some things I've seen people posting about that they've changed based on what they've said. So I have absolutely no doubts whatsoever that it'll get where it needs to be. I'm sure it will. I expected it to come in at a more advanced state than it has. I think that was some of my surprise. But the rate of progress I'm seeing up to this point, the track record that the studio have with previous titles, and the change that I've seen from V1 to V3 are all really positive signs. But at the moment, for me, I mean, some cars feel good. The Caterham, I didn't like that particularly when it first came out, but now they've changed a few things and that's starting to get there a little bit. There's not enough road noise for my taste. And by road noise, what I mean is anybody who's played, if we use R Factor 2 Sebring as an example, where you can feel the different road surfaces, the bumps, the cambers, the textures through your force feedback. Or if you talk about the Bathurst that recently came out for Assetto Corsa Competizione, you can feel the camber changes. You're going up the long back straight. You're struggling to keep the car in a straight line as it's going. There's not enough of that. That's nowhere near pronounced enough yet for me in ACC. But they've already done a new pass at the road texture map on some of the circuits, and that's promised even more passes of that coming. So I'm certain that will arrive. I'm sure that's not something that's going to be flawed throughout the game. I'm sure they're going to bring it in time. So they seem to be doing the sensible thing, a sensible approach in the right way. So it'll get there. I think maybe, potentially, a lot of it is I had this exceptional package in my mind and it'll be something otherworldly good. And I've basically given it, I kind of put it on a pedestal and given it an expectation that's massively unrealistic, and then surprise myself when it's not been this amazing package.
But I do remember you being worried at certain YouTube videos that came out, though, Paul.
So and my experiences have mirrored what I've seen on video.
Yeah,
so the assumptions I've made on the video have come through in my mileage with the game up to this point. So. It'll get there, though. I mean, I don't want to be sounding like I'm being negative and bashing. I'm not absolutely.
Oh no, we could be more critical than we're being.
Of course, I mean, I'm trying to be as diplomatic, but at the same time honest as I can be. And it's not where it wants to be. If it came out as a version 1 finished product today, apart from the polishing of the AI and stuff, then I don't like it. But I've got no expectation that what you have today is going to be what we're going to have in 12 months' time. No expectation of that whatsoever. In 12 months, it will be a different product. But if I'm talking about it today and I'm asked to rank it personally today, I rank it at the bottom of the current lists, apart from P-Cars 2. It's better than that by a long way already. So, yeah. They'll get there, I'm certain of it. And big shout out to the community that have been posting these really good feedback. I was just reading today earlier, somebody's like, they're looking for holes in the walls where you drive through a wall and it drops into...
Yeah.
And someone's basically gone on every single circuit and hit every single wall and then replied with the findings. That's mega. So well done, everybody
mega,
out there that's putting these really good feedback in.
That's likely to be the benefit of the quarantine. Davide, you want the last word?
I was thinking about what I said before about my feelings for MS2. I wanted to apologize because I expressed myself in saying that with some of the cars in AMS2, it feels like when you do a conversion for a factor to Assetto Corsa. I apologize for the use of term cheap. It was an over-exaggeration of my part in trying to explain my point. Still, it remains that I feel that some of the models and textures are subpar compared to the potential of the engine, mainly because they are models that were born for a much simpler engine. But I understand that thinking about it, I over-exaggerate in terms. They're not cheap conversion. It's just an over-exaggeration on my part. They're not express the potential of the engine, but they're not that bad. So apologies on that. It felt unfair thinking back to it. So okay. I wanted to put it straight.
Well, just in case anybody from Razor's listening and asked to get your address and hunt you down, yeah?
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Love it. Right, okay, swiftly moving on to the next topic. F1 Manager, newly officially licensed Formula One management game, has been announced. Frontier Developments has confirmed a new and officially licensed Formula One management game is in development, with a release expected in early 2022. Now, I'll be honest, I think this is something that's been missing from Formula One for a while. There was some really good F1 based management games back in the day, Danny, weren't there? I don't know if you're probably a bit young, actually. I don't know if you would have played them.
I remember they were around, but I actually never got them and I never played it. I've played a few management games, but unfortunately actually never the Formula One ones. But I've tried I'll see if I'll get the Motorsport Manager to get my fix meanwhile. I've had it on my mobile, so it's been a good game to have.
Yeah, it's a good game
on commuting and so on. That's been really great. So I look forward to this one.
I remember playing Motorsport Manager for hours. I introduced it to work colleagues. They're like, what are you playing like this is Motorsport Manager? I would literally just play that'd be my lunchtime.
Yeah, it's almost too addictive, man. I know.
Oh, yeah. And I love these type of games where you buy upgrades for your car and pay for developments. Obviously, you got a little bit of that in F1 2019 and so forth, haven't you? When you race, you can give areas of development a focus. So I guess it will take those kind of elements of it with it, won't it?
Well, it would be cool to have something actually properly dedicated to just the management side. I think some people like it, and I will for sure give it a try.
Yeah. Sorry to everybody if you can hear that, but Danny seems to be getting nice and close and personal with his microphone this week. So,
sorry.
He's like that James Bond villain, but instead of a cat stroking, he's just stroking his microphone.
I don't know what he's doing.
Yes, motorsport. Yes.
I will get you, Mr. Jeffrey. Davide, F1 Manager, you excited?
Absolutely. Before I go, Paul,
which one?
What?
Which Paul?
You.
Oh, okay.
Look at the time counter on the pod registration because you'll need it. You did?
Oh, what? Say what?
You took a look at the time on the pod registration? Recording.
I look at the time. Yeah, I see the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, it's just because you'll need it in a bit.
I can see it. It's all right.
Okay.
Listen, mate.
And here it goes.
What I'm thinking is people are going to be quarantined. They're going to have a lot of time.
No. It's not for that.
They
Paul,
need us in their ears
Paul,
for as long as possible.
Relax. I didn't tell you because of that, but because of this. Because I'm about to say that back in the day, Grand Prix Manager 1 and 2, I played the shit out of those games.
Right, okay. I mean, you can't swear, but Yeah, I mean, brilliant. I'll have to edit that again. Who swore last time? Was it Davide last time as well?
Yeah.
Right. I tell you what, it's 2 yellows is a red, so be careful, my friend. Right?
I was very polite. I told you to look at the time. So this year.
So the public edit of this is going to be, Davide, what do you think? It is the good. And then move on. Everything cut out.
I didn't realise that Mario was in the room. Right.
I can't do accents, I'm sorry. Apologies to anybody I've offended with my really poor... Davide, carry on. Yeah. Forgive me.
No, I was saying Grand Prix Manager. The first one... No, yeah, both 1 and 2. I played them a lot back in the day. They were awesome, and they still are to this day because they have some features that Grand Prix Manager doesn't have. For example, the last one Motorsport Manager is the last one in the series of F1 managing. How do you say it?
F1? Grand Prix Manager, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, in that kind of
games.
Yeah, management games. Exactly. Thanks. So they're still great, even if they are from the early 90s. Still, people play them.
Yeah, Grand Prix Manager 2 came out in 1996.
Yeah, they were.
And it was also released by the same publisher that released, the Jeff Grammond games.
Okay, now a little story on my side, just to cheer someone who is listening. Basically, the first time that I played Grand Prix Manager, I managed to hire, before the start of the season, 2 very strong drivers, and one of them was Michael Schumacher. And I paid a lot of money to have him on the team. I almost bankrupted the team just to have him on board. First race of the season, I don't remember exactly the race, but it was the very first one. The qualis goes on, he gets on pole, everything is nice. Starts the race. At the very first corner, I see him spinning around, going out of the track. Boom! Exploding, and they said, "Crom, no, he's dead." Luckily, the spinning and exploding, it was just the way in that kind of old game to say that he had a simple accident. He just went out of the track. But it was fun in that moment after spending all of that money, seeing him in that. In that explosion, I thought it for the worst, but luckily it was just every time a car went off the track, it exploded in that game. Every time. So the first time it was a bit traumatic, but it was fine after that.
Good. I'm glad explosions, were got under control, shall we say. Mr. Jeffrey, are you a motorsport manager type of guy?
Oh, yes. I, much like Davide, really heavily played Grand Prix Manager 2 back in the day. But funnily enough, not played Motorsport Manager at this point yet. I don't know why. I just kind of like life overtook me and just forgot about it and never quite got round to getting engaged. But I'm a big fan of simulation and management games. I absolutely cannot stand football, but for a while we're addicted to the Football Manager games, even though I'm not interested in footy at all.
They are really, really good. They got a little bit overcomplicated now, but they are very, very good.
I think it was, which one was it now? It might have been like 01, 02, 03, that kind of era that I was really into it. When Shearer was still getting towards the end of his career, but still a big noise.
Yeah, a long time ago now. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But when the top-down ones were the little counter things that showed the players and stuff, but still really, really good fun. So I'm scared that I'm going to lose a lot of my life to this new game if it's any good. And I'm very one channel, so I don't really play games, only motorsports, racing sims. So I'd never heard of Frontier Developments or this Planet Zoo and Planet Coaster or whatever it is. So I had a quick look on the internet since the announcement just to get my head around what they're all about, and they look phenomenally detailed. So if that's kind of the attitude the developers take to this sort of thing, I'm really excited. I think we're going to have something that's a lot more detailed than the slightly light touch approach of Motorsport Manager. Because from what I understand with Motorsport Manager, it's basically the PC version was just a bigger version of the phone game. So good as it might be, it's a little bit simplistic in its approach, where I suspect if Frontier follow the lines on which they've been developing previous similar type products, this should be massive and very exciting for all concerned.
Well, these are the guys that have not too long ago did Jurassic World Evolution. Back in the day, they did a few Roller Coaster Tycoons as well, which were very, very popular back in the day.
Those were cool.
Recently, they've done some Elite Dangerous games. I don't know if you remember, Elite first came out on the BBC Micro. I remember my dad used to love it, where it's literally you are you're in space and you kind of like fly between planets and space stations and dealing. You buy and sell stuff.
I got that when I first bought VR Elite Dangerous, because I heard it were really good in VR and it sounded quite exciting. I spent like 2 hours spinning around in a circle or not moving. Nothing happened, and then I just uninstalled it. I've not been back since. Because at the end of the day, you can't race nothing in it, so I don't know why I bother doing these things.
It's like know your audience, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
But so I can see why people are excited about it. And Jurassic World Evolution is about basically running your own version of the park from Jurassic for the films. So I think it's okay. I think by all accounts, I don't know if it's their best game, but yeah. So I think they've got some good heritage. So rightly so. People should be excited. So I love a good management game. I like him with it's a hard line. It's a fine, not a hard line. It's a fine line between making it fun and enjoyable. And like I used to play Championship Manager 1998. I remembered it having 2 leagues, the English and the Italian leagues. And as we're now, when you boot up Football Manager, you have the choice of basically leagues from over the world, and some that you can make playable, and some you can just make active for database reasons, because the more games that play, the computer has to process those games. So the more leagues you activate, the game gets slower. But every year they make tweaks, and it just gets that little bit more complicated. The last one I played was 2 years ago, and then Charlton, who I support, were in League One at the time and probably going to end up in League One again, though nobody knows what's going to happen with the football leagues right now. I had Charlton top of the league, and I just stopped playing it because it takes a lot of time. And that was a year. I worked out the other day. That was 2 years ago I played that, and I keep saying to myself, I've got to get back to that. And I'd probably be the same with this, to be honest. But if they released an iPad version, I quite happily play that on the train, because I have a lot of time in my on my commute.
I'm so glad London. You said on the train. I thought that was going to go somewhere entirely different. I quite happily play that on no, not the toilet, not the toilet.
You just got a filthy mind, literally.
On the toilet's where you're supposed to read all my articles.
I can imagine on your laptop from like 1985. But it'll be interesting to see where this goes. I think it's the thing that's missing from Formula One games right now. I think people are rightly to be excited about what they're gonna achieve. So great stuff, excellent. That brings that nicely to a close. Okay, item number 4, Dirt Rally 2.0, Colin McRae pack. Let's start with you, Danny.
I don't have Colin McRae Rally 2 or Dirt Rally 2, so sorry, can't comment much on the content.
No, I haven't got it either, but we can comment on the
it's cool,
content,
sure.
Can't we?
Actually, I like that the picture that you put on. Well, that Paul put on RaceDepartment was the Legacy, because it's a car that you almost never see in any rally game. So I was actually quite happy to see that one used on the cover. So what can I say? The Sierra as well. I see it here. Well, there's my favorite, of course, the Impreza. So that's cool.
I mean the Impreza's legendary, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely legendary.
Favorite rally car of all time. So good to see it. It's cool. Well, on a small tangent, they're also coming this year. They'll have the Colin McRae rally. I mean, in the real world for the first time. So like a tribute rally to Colin McRae. So good to see like they're doing it as well on the game.
My question to you would be, you know, the kind of not. It's great to see this new content, but you know, people are kind of questioning the way the game has been released. You know, with the DLC content. I mean, this content I think is good for DLC, but some of the other content they've released Codemasters for Dirt 2.0 or 2.0, whichever way you want to call it. You know, some of the tracks they've released have been in the previous iteration of the game, which is a bit of a shame. Do you think that they're making people pay for this DLC?
Well, if you see it as we've mentioned before, it's a bit of a thing of, well, you get what you want to get, and if you don't want it, you don't get it. And again, it says it's free for all the season owners, which I guess is a similar thing to like a season pass or a season pack. So if you have it, you'll already have that included. So, I mean, it's the way to do business these days, and I don't see it as a bad thing. If people want it, they'll try it. If they have the season pack, they got the most for money surely at the end of the game cycle.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it is what it is.
Have you read some of the comments from people when this got released? Because quite a few people were accusing Paul Codemasters of basically copy and paste for the track for the route in Wales, basically saying that they just rearranged Scotland.
I can see people's argument about the whole copy and paste thing. So, I mean, I don't know what the stages are like for the new Colin McRae Scotland things. I don't know if they're entirely new routes or they're reissuing of stuff that's already been in the game. I'm assuming they're entirely new routes, but I don't really know. But this whole copy and paste from Dirt Rally 1 malarkey. You buy the game based on how much content it's got, and you decide whether you think that's worth paying for or not. And then the follow-on stuff they're releasing it's not coming in at a high price point. And for me personally, I'd rather have had... I'm not particularly interested in the Rallycross side of Dirt Rally 2.
No, it doesn't interest me either, if I'm being entirely frank.
I don't want to pay 15 quid more for my copy of the game to have a load of Rallycross stuff that I don't care about. I don't care about a lot of the additional cars as well. So I've bought the additional rally stages. Yep, absolutely. Buy those for sure, because I love Dirt Rally. I think it's a brilliant game. And I've bought a couple of cars that I'm interested in. So off the top of my head, I think I've bought the Skoda Fabia because Colin McRae drove it, funnily enough. And that works for me. The price point, they're coming in at like £3.50 or £3.50 or like €4, whatever, for a rally stage. They're a significant visual and playability upgrade over the Dirt 1 stuff. So... I'm quite content with that. If you make a decision that the base game costs whatever, 40 quid, 35 quid, whatever it was at the time, and it's got X, Y, and Z content, is it worth it? Yes or no? Bonus for DLC stuff after the event. So I've got no problem with it. And this Colin McRae one is free anyway for season pass owners, which I'm not, so I'll end up buying it because it's Colin McRae, so you've got to, aren't you? And I think it's a nice way to round out development. I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be a good pack. It looks exciting so far, and any additional rally stages in the game is winner chicken dinner as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. I'm excited to see I'm a big fan of McRae, so it's good to see some of the old school stuff coming into the game.
Especially the legacy as well, as Danny said. The Subaru legacy was Subaru's first attempt at respectability that kind of set McRae on the way to his glittering career and set Subaru on the way to becoming a powerhouse that they are nowadays in rallying competitions. So
completely kind of relevant, but I could kind of allude to it at the beginning, or just kind of deviate to it. Paul, you and I both watched a recent episode of Top Gear in the UK.
Oh, that was exceptional.
And the bit with Chris Harris talking about Colin McRae, and he drove the Subaru Impreza, Colin McRae's actual Subaru Impreza, which I have seen a couple of times at Goodwood, because it's generally there at the festival speed, because his family look after and keep it all nice and so forth. What a great piece that was.
And come on, admit it. Did you have a tear in your eye when watching that?
I did a little.
So did I.
Yeah,
so did I. That were beautiful, beautifully, respectfully put together by Harris and Tokyo. Well done.
And and I know a lot of people have been questionable about the recent change in presenters and things like that, but sometimes they just pull things out of the bag, and that was it for me. And it did. It pulled on the heartstrings. You know, how long ago was that now? And also, you forget exactly. it was a helicopter crash.
Well, I mean, McRae died a long time ago now, and it was surprising to me how upset Dave Richards, the boss of Pro Drive, was about it. Even all these years later. So that shows the level of esteem Colin McRae was held in. I mean, it's practically unheard of, but I think it was 2001-ish when he moved to Ford and he had the new Focus.
99.
Pardon?
1999, that was.
God damn, life's scarily fast. In 1999, when the new Focus came out, Grandstand had one of the rallies live towards the end of the season, and I was lucky that I had a teacher at the time that also liked motor racing. We left the lesson and went to watch it on the only television we had in the library, because it's like Colin McRae transcended even
he brought
motorsport.
World Rally into everyone else's life, didn't he? He kind of brought it into into mainstream, didn't he?
It did. It was because he was a little bit like maybe Ayrton Senna in Formula One. He was more than rally. He was a guy that people just got behind, whether they liked rally or not. They just wanted to see success for Colin McRae, regardless of what discipline is racing in. And to literally walk away from a lesson, because I remember it clearly. Me and my mate Danny, big friends and big fans of motorsport, we're just like, right, sir, rally starts in like 15 minutes. It's like, right, sod it, come on then. And we just left. I don't know what happened to the class, whether they had a supply teacher or what, but we just left. It's like, Colin McRae's fighting for a championship. There's like no way I'm side of the class when it's live on telly. So see you in a bit, boys. And went and sat down. Happy days.
Nice.
Brilliant.
You can get away with that now. Davide, your thoughts on the content and Conor McRae?
In the latest expansion, you mean the McRae pack? It's as Danny was saying, it's a great addition for the cars, and also for the expansion track-wise with the new routes. How do you say it? Routes. Because
a route for our Australian friends is a slang for sex.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's always important in rally games to have as much road.
As much route as you can get.
You scared me, Paul. You were so loud.
I was very excited. Sorry.
Apologies for Paul blowing off your eardrums, everybody. If you want to send your hospital bills to Paul Jeffrey at RaceDepartment.com.
So what I was saying, yes, that in rally games it's important. I think that it's more pivotal to have as much trucks or in general a road to cover than cars to drive, because differently from other motorsport disciplines where you race on tracks, you are expected to learn the track. So the unexpected is challenging yourself to drive as fast as possible in the track with a car that you maybe don't know. In rally games, it's exactly the opposite. You should know the car and don't know where you are driving it. So it's nice that they are expanding their track roster as well, as much as they are adding new cars to the pack.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's good to have new content. I just think they've been a bit cheeky with the base content, but Codemasters. I'll call them out on that. But I do like. I mean, this, this is a decent add-on. Some great historic cars there, and are based on what is probably Britain's greatest rally driver of all time. And I cannot believe that he left us in 2007, which is just remarkable. So, and his legacy continues. So yeah,
His Subaru legacy.
His Subaru legacy continues.
Hey, nice one, Danny. Nice one.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Go away, Danny. Right, switching nicely to our main topic this week. So, Davide, over to you. Go on. What's the main topic? It's your baby.
Yeah. First of all, let me start that. You should know, guys who are listening to the pod, this is probably the best main topic that we've had so far in all of the seasons.
God, don't make me laugh. I need to pee. I'll pee all over myself if you're not careful.
Yeah. So it's the best main topic we've had so far, and it's basically this. Allow me to explain it to you. So we are about to discuss, and we want to hear your opinion too. If we about the current generation of sims, let's say, so for example, think of Assetto Corsa Competizione, think of AMS2, think of GTR3, if God knows when and how it comes out. Those new sims, some of them are focusing on a specific racing series, like for example ACC with the GT3 cars. And even though it is expanding to GT4 in the summer, and on the other side you have titles like for example AMS2, which are keeping the tradition, we can say, of doing sims that try to have multiple series in it. And let's discuss if we think that with the current generation of sims there is a more preferable way to approach the sim developing scene. If it's better to have just one series like Kunos is doing, or multiple series like Race is doing.
Okay, so I think we have touched on this before. In the podcast, I do think we have touched on this subject.
Don't try to diminish.
No.
Just destroyed all of his info right now.
We have kind of touched on this, but something I want to mention to you is on Race Department and on our forums, I like to think I'm like the voice of reason, right? And recently there was I'm trying to find it while I'm talking. Mr. Jeffrey, our chief editor, posted an update about the GT4 and the Brit Pack and so forth. So anyway, right? So someone, right? Basically, I picked a hole in their comments. They some people have. So ACC, the recent announcement came out, right, about the console release and so forth, and then people basically say, well, why can't it have these games and these games and these cars? And I'm like, because it's a series. People don't. I think the biggest problem is people are either I don't know if they're trolling, I don't know what they're doing, or they're just don't get it, right? But when you sign a license for a series, because I basically came back and went, okay, so what? In F1 2019, you want to add DTM, do you? Like, that's just...
It makes no sense.
Yeah, so people are basically going on to the post that Paul makes, right? Articles are going, great game, but why hasn't it got karting? Well, because karting is not part of SRO. It's a series. It's not Art Factor. It's not Automobilista 1. And it's not Automobilista 2. And it's not Project Cars or Project Cars 2. ACC is a single series game. So word to the wise people. Stop being stupid, right? Because you're just making a fool of yourself. And you're trying to be funny, you're not. You're just an idiot, right? Okay. Going on to
relax, Paul. Relax. Breathe.
You're an idiot.
Breathe.
You're an idiot, right? And then to be fair, the person who I got into a debate with about this, where I kind of went, yeah, it's my personal problem. To be fair, I don't like modern GT cars, but CSC with much potential by the developer who gave us Assetto Corsa, one of my absolute favourites. Just because it's GT, only ACC is not for me. Like, what's your point? Like, I'm not being funny, fella, but what's your point? Like, you're just saying stuff for the sake of saying it. It's not valid. Yeah. Anyway, going back to the question at hand.
So Paul's opinion, everybody, is Paul's alone and not shared by the Race Department podcast crew or affiliates.
Listen. I'm allowed an opinion. That's what people love about me. Single series versus jack of all trades. I think honestly, that's all down to the game, really. If we look, I mean, we've talked about it again and again and again, but I think Project Cars is a good example here. Obviously, each car type handles differently, and we understand that. So a DTM car will handle different to a GT4 or a GT3, and then a Formula 1 car will handle completely different because you've got aerodynamics in play and the different tyres and the way the cars are so low and so forth. I guess where we talked about where Project Cars will, some cars feel like they're not touching the road and others. Do you get that kind of, if you look at Assetto Corsa, do you get that level of inconsistency there? I'd probably say you don't. Not that I've noticed it. Feel free for anybody else to chime in if they disagree with that. Oh, look at that. There's silence. I think that kind of proves my point. So it can work. I think if we look at Assetto Corsa Competizione, where it's able to focus on a championship, I think we're really starting to see how that is developing around the gameplay element, the handling. Some questions still remain around the UI for me in the game. Like Paul and I were doing a bit of practice last night, and we were talking about how you can't easily search for a track that you're trying to find if you want to go and join like a public lobby just to get a bit of practice in. If you want to risk your life in a public lobby, that is. I don't know. I like variety, don't get me wrong, and I think that sometimes, kind of to the point which I was just completely debunking, actually, it sometimes would be nice to have other cars in ACC because the game is so good. But maybe then on the flip side, the game is so good because they can just focus on a single series. I think that's all I really have to say on the matter.
Well, just to get you going a bit more on that post about the ACC and GT4, I found another guy saying that he would have preferred TCRs in the game. So I'll let you keep on going a bit longer.
I mean, what is wrong with people? What is wrong? Seriously, I sometimes want to just run up into a wall and just headbutt it. Like I don't know what to say. What is wrong with people? Anyway, I better stop talking. I'll get myself in trouble with the boss.
Sorry, I shouldn't have said that.
No, it's fine. I like a rant. Paul Jeffrey likes my rants, really, don't you, Paul?
He fell asleep.
What? Where am I? What's happening? Who? No, I do like your rants, Paul. I do. They're a sight to behold.
Yeah, or listen to even.
Indeed, indeed.
Paul, what are your thoughts on single versus multi-series games?
Well, once upon a time, many, many moons ago, a couple of years back maybe, now I think, can't remember, certainly before ACC came out, long time before we knew about that, I put a discussion thread post up at RD harking back to the good old GTR 2 days.
Yeah.
I think it might have been during the game that never was, GTR 3 hype. Championing. God, I'm struggling for words.
Is that game never coming now?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, no one knows.
Maybe.
Okay.
That's another podcast for another day. But yeah, I was a big fan of the GTR 2 game and also the Race 07, which was the World Touring Car and a few similar type series. And I kind of championed the idea of why don't sim developers create a more focused single series title? So at the time, the trend was either your games like R Factor 2, where it's pretty much the tech behind it and then let the modding community bring content, or Assetto Corsa was big at the time, where there's a lot of different kinds of content brought by the developers alongside mod content, which is nice. But for me personally, I've got limited interest, unless I'm in an online league, in racing generic cars, so a generic field of GT3s, so unliveried or non-series specific GT3s or touring car, whatever. It doesn't have to be any particular class, just cars that aren't a full championship. So I kind of like Race Room Racing Experience for that, because they've got the World Touring cars, which are phenomenally good. They had the DTM, they've got the ADAC GT Masters for the GT3 side of things, so they had some licenses. But I think it's difficult to quantify these things, much like it's difficult to say driver X in Formula One, Juan Manuel Fangio is better than Senna or Hamilton. It's difficult to say, but because Kunos have put a heck of a lot of effort into ACC. But I think, taken on face value, the idea of focusing down onto a particular category is reaping absolute dividends, because Assetto Corsa Competizione now, for me, is the best racing sim on the market. The handling, the graphics, the tracks, the immersion, the rules that simulate the real world series, all the fine detail, because they're limiting themselves down to one category. Okay, they're doing the GT4, but it still follows the same circus that is the now GT World Challenge powered by AWS, I think it is. And that's starting to reap benefits, and that's become my go-to simulation. I like to race real cars on real tracks, in period, in the liveries, against the artificial intelligence that is the real drivers. And I like a detailed AI as well. And I've raced offline quite a bit recently in preparation for an online event that I was doing at RaceDepartment, which we'll talk about later at Suzuka. And the AI race was fabulous. I did one at Silverstone as well for a race I didn't manage to make it to. And the whole experience is just fabulous, where it's a bit of a mixed bag in Assetto Corsa, which is the only similar kind of game that's sort of had the development behind it. And I'm not interested in picking... I know there's like a heck of a lot of GT3 cars, but I'm not interested in 5 liveries from Noise Life 24 Hours, 5 liveries from Blancpain, 3 liveries from British GT, and all that sort of jazz. In a mixed bag of cars that never raced against each other on track in a real series. That doesn't do anything for me. So I'm actually a firm fan and would like to see more single series, and even if that means selling, like for example Kunos, if they release the upcoming GT4s that they're proposing to do, I'm assuming there'll probably be a 2020 Blancpain update as well for the new cars and liveries once that season kicks off, and the ancillary bits like the British tracks that are coming out. If they then released an entirely brand new game at 45 quid that focused on a different series, I'm just saying, for instance, I'm not suggesting this, World Touring Car TCR, yeah, I would buy that, and then released and developed that so it's a feature-rich quality game, and then released another new game that focuses just on another series entirely, let's say whatever, Japanese Super GT. I would be in for that, because the standalone value quality of it is high enough to justify paying a full retail price if it's done to the same level of detail as GTR2 before it and ACC now. Whereas the idea of these jack-of-all-trades type sims is kind of appeals less to me and my taste nowadays than maybe once did. And that's a whole lot of talking, so I'm sorry, I shall move on.
Oh, it's good. It's good. I think before we move on to Davide and get his kind of it's his questions. We want to hear his opinion on it, Paul. But it just occurred to me while you were talking there that it's the games that generally have multiple series tend to be more aimed at your casual gamer, maybe your console user.
I mean, console users probably a bit unfair, because I'm sure there's still guys and girls on console that like a thoroughbred detail. But you're right;
they tend to land on consoles, though, don't they?
They do, yeah.
Those type of games.
If you've got, for instance, 60 cars and 25 tracks, let's say, you cannot possibly get to the same level of detail as something that simulates 14 cars and 8 tracks in one championship. You can't do it because you've got, as you mentioned earlier, Paul, you've got formula type cars competing on the same physics engine and the same AI sets of rules and tweak as you have classic touring cars, let's say. Completely different kettles of fish, where stuff like with the Kunos thing, you can have the garage guys come out and sort your car out, and it's modelled to that specific car rather than trying to be a one size fits all. The AI is tweaked for that specific car track combination to the nth degree, rather than done till it's good enough and then moving on to the 59 other cars you've got to deal with. So it's logistics, and it's not these sim racing studios are not AAA studios with 900 staff. They're relatively small affairs. I mean, if you look at the end credits of ACC, there's about 15 guys on there, and I don't think that's particularly far off the full amount of staff they've got, and a few subcontractors. So smartly, working smart and working hard and focusing it down into a concentrated area for me and making something exceptional is, for my personal opinion, the right way to go. So if Sector 3 Studios, let's say, release a standalone Race 21, which is a sequel to Race 07, that was the World Touring Car, or WTCR, should I say, the ADAC TCR, the German version, and I don't know, let's throw Australian, because their TCR series is looking really good, the Aussies. The Australian Touring Car, I'd pay 50 quid for that, in a heartbeat, if it's done to a detailed level. And then if a developer, Riser, let's say, just to pick somebody out of thin air, built a game that was just the Stock Car Brazil series and all the rules and detail to the same level as ACC, I'd pay full price for that as well. I'd much rather do that than light touch, which tends to happen up to this point and has happened historically. And that's my piece on that one.
Yeah. Very valid points there, Mr. Jeffrey, I feel. Yeah. Davide.
Yes.
Over to you, sir.
Just a quick note. I don't think that before you were saying to Paul that maybe trying to have multiple series is a way to cater console players ish, but I don't think that's the case, because console players are used to single series games, like for example the F1 games or the MotoGP games. It's hard to have.
Yeah, that's actually a very valid point. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
actually.
I mean, just now sims are starting to come on consoles with Assetto Corsa and now ACC, but and Project Cars, if we want to consider it as a full-fledged sims. But before that, on consoles, you could only find single series officially licensed games. So I think that maybe the fact of going with multiple series was a natural response to the fact that for years we basically had just in a sense R Factor. I mean, there were of course some other sims, but 90% of the sim racers played R Factor, which was for official content it was very scarce. It was everything was basically mods on it. So when the first sims of the new generation came, they tried to show their muscles, but by trying to have as many series as possible to make an impression. But to me, those times are over. We all know that what sims are capable of now, what sim engines are capable of in this moment of history, we can say. It's time for me to move to a different kind of mentality, which is, as Paul Jeffrey was saying, that of focusing on a single series, because you may lose some audience, we can say, some people buying your game. Like, for example, I love Assetto Corsa, but I didn't buy, I've bought ACC, but I refunded it, and I'm still on the considering if rebuying it or not. And the announcement of the GT4 cars cleared my mind on that. So yeah, you might lose some buyers, some people that purchase your game, but at the same time you manage to make a much more detailed title for rules, for cars, for trucks. Because, as Paul was saying, it isn't much fun. For example, for me, I like vintage cars. It isn't much fun to race just Lotus 49s on Monza and Silverstone 1966. It becomes old very fast. It is very much more interesting to
I like what you
race.
did there, old very fast, and you're talking about vintage cars.
Nice.
That's what you did there. It's well played.
So
you didn't realise that was unintentional, wasn't it?
I think so. Yeah.
Carry on.
So it's much more fun when you have the full series, all of the cars with the right liveries, skins, competing against each other with the correct drivers, and each driver having its own talent, his or her, if there is a female driver, talent file, mimicking the performance of the driver himself or herself on the track where they competed. It's much more fun, and I think that in the long run, it is the smartest move right now for me. And as I was saying, even if in the initial part of your sales you'll maybe sell less, you'll probably get back what you didn't sell in the long run when you expand with like Kunos did with ACC with the 2019 season. I think that they'll make also the 2020. There has been no official statement on that, but it is probable. You have the GT4s, you may have some other series that all revolve around the same rules. So it all makes sense. It keeps being consistent. Not like with the multiple series where it becomes a bit of a mess. So I don't know if it was clear enough.
I had a comment or a question, and then it went completely out of my head, which is a real shame because I thought it was quite
I probably confused you with with my thinking.
No, it was me. I distracted myself away from what I was going to ask you, and now I can't remember what the question
was.
Yeah, what the question
was. The fact is that Paul said pretty much all there is to say about it. It was a very, very clear and perfect. So my point is that going for multiple series is it was a good call during the previous generation of sims. So Assetto Corsa, AMS1, Project Cars 1 and 2, but right now it is better to focus on a single series. It's
yeah, well. I mean, Automobilista 2 is going against that grain, isn't it? So
yeah, it is, and I think that I made my point about it clear before when, as I said before, are subpar with the possibilities of the engine itself, and that's the problem with the with the approach that Reza had. In fact, I said if it was for me, they would have done better by starting again from scratch.
Yeah,
because it's the.
Anyway, right. I think I think you're going to kind of end up repeating. What you said really wrong, but I think this just goes to everybody here. I think it was the thought that occurred to me when Davide was talking there, and he mentioned something, and then a thought popped into my head was the huge benefit, which I think we are forgetting here about doing a single series, is because they're focusing on that and they've signed a license, they get data.
Oh yeah, and
they get data from the teams, don't they?
Yeah,
so they get data from the tyre manufacturers, and they get data from the teams, and then they get drivers testing the game.
Yeah, for example, with ACC, there is the drivers. I think, if I'm not mistaken, is South African.
I forget his name. If I'm being.
David Perel.
That's it. Yeah, and he started. I think he started out as a sim racer and makes videos. I think there have been others that obviously, he's the only one that's really kind of has a profile online. But I think there are others. But
absolutely.
My point
There's
is
Nicky
here
Team
is
as well.
that data. I mean, if I'm going to decide tomorrow, right, I've got a development team and I'm going to make a game and I'm going to include Formula 1, I'm going to include Formula 2, and then I'm going to add some GTR 3 games, I'm going to add some karts in there. Where am I going to get the data from to make those games? I might be able to get one team on board, perhaps, if I know someone, or pay a few bob to a team to get their data. I don't know how it works. But if I've got the license, I get the data from all the teams.
Yeah, and that's what happened.
Right?
Yeah, that is what happened also with Reza, with the stock cars. You had they were in contact with the teams and with the drivers, or for example, for Race Room with the TCR and DTMs, they had drivers trying the cars, and you can tell with those. With that content, with the stock cars, for example, from Reza or DTMs and TCR, that they are on somewhat of a different level compared to the rest of the content they have inside the same sim.
Yeah. I think
that's one of the many reasons I don't like fantasy content. Never been a fan of fantasy content for interpreted physics. I like it to be as close to the real thing, and that's the thing where, again, going back to the topic in hand of the single series thing, I mean, this is way above my head, so I'm not going to go into any kind of detail, but there's been some posts from the Kunos guys with ACC about the improvements they've made to the slipstream effect and side drafting and the cone of effectiveness of the slipstream and how it unsettles your car in different ways and more advanced ways than was possible in the original Assetto Corsa, because again, you're doubling down on a smaller amount of content, so you can afford to address these levels of details that you just physically can't get round to in a much larger scope sim as the original AC is, for example. And little stuff like that really turns me on, that kind of thing in a sim racing game, is that level of detail and immersion aspects, and the whole thing about the way the traction control interacts with the car, the different stages, the engine maps, everything's just that little bit more detailed than another simulator's GT3 content, let's say, where GT3 is just a small portion of a much larger range of cars, and that's possible in that level of game. And also, don't forget the from the business side of things, all this detail that Kunos, for example, have applied in ACC, they can then export that learning, that development and that work into their next title, and have that level of additional depth that wouldn't have been possible if they'd have just made AC2, rinse and repeat, but bigger. So that's a knock-on benefit as well for sim racing as a whole, and AC in particular, and the chassis flex and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the brake pad simulation, man, they have got so in depth, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, this is it. And you're not going to get that from a multi-series game, are you? I mean,
not to that level, certainly not to that level, because as you kind of alluded to with the data sharing and the close association that they have with the then titled Blankpan series, that breakware is scientifically applied into the sim. So that's not just an arbitrary after X amount of hammer, this is going to happen. That's been calculated through data, through numbers, through maths, through actual on-track development. So the breakware, okay, and I'm not saying it's going to be one-to-one with real life, but it's going to be a heck of a lot closer than in breakware in a multi-discipline game where you're just going to put an arbitrary limit on there. Like with tyre wear, after 20 laps, your tyre should be X amount knackered. That's been developed in ACC on real data to mirror the real thing. So the breakware is the same thing, and that's a level of depth you are not going to get in AC1, R Factor 2, Automobilista 2, or Race Room Racing Experience, I wouldn't imagine. So all little things that actually make a massive picture at the end of it when you put them all together.
Yeah, fair point. Yeah,
But to be honest, sorry.
Go on, go.
Yeah, both single series games and Jack of all trades are needed though, because when R Factor 1 started with this Jack of all trades trend, and then many games followed it, and we've been actually waiting for like 13 years between GTR2 and ACC. We kind of course it came back to being the GT cars that people like and drive, but everybody wants to drive everything, and they have to add AC1 and everybody driving it, and then them figuring out, okay, everybody likes GT3 cars, let's make a GT3 game. But let's say, imagine everybody liked Formula 3s, or everybody liked touring cars a lot more, and then Race Room had done them. So in the end, everybody always plays the same kind of cars, and everybody likes, like, there's the Formula 1 games, they've always been there, so people like to recreate the championship, and because they can relate to what they see on TV or etc. But the bigger games still need to be there to show us other content that it's out there that we would have never heard about.
I totally agree that there's place for both, without a doubt. And I also bemoan the move away from modability, which I think is a big shame, because I like the obscure stuff. I mean, we're lucky that Riser, from the studio, create obscure stuff, so a lot of Brazilian-centric things, which I think is absolutely awesome. But yeah, there's room for both, for sure. The idea that, like you say, you can drive a Formula 3 car and stuff like that, which probably wouldn't be big enough in its own right. So I think it's fair to say to have a standalone game is epic. So there's room for both, but my personal leaning is single sim stuff as well as is my main preference for me in direct answer to the question.
Davide?
I was going to respond to Danny about the fact of needing both kind of sims, both the single series focused and the jack of all trades. But while I was talking, another thought crossed my mind. I was thinking of this idea. Maybe it's crazy, maybe it could work out. I think that I stand by my point that with the current, at least with the current generation of sims, it would be better to focus on a single series. However, to not lose the possibility of having a more vast experience. So to try many different cars or series, or some cars that maybe not everyone knows about, but someone is particularly fond of. Maybe a better option nowadays would be not to make a proper sim by definition. I mean, a sim with specific content of cars and trucks, but maybe developing an engine and supporting it over a long period of time for modders to work on. Because we have seen with Assetto Corsa that there are have always been talented modders, but nowadays we have they have also the tools to express themselves and also to make a living off. In some cases, we've seen some modders making some teams team up to make better content and have the possibility to sell it because of its quality. So maybe giving modders a platform to express themselves will be a better option rather than trying yourself to make a sim with as many series as possible. You just develop the engine. You give the modders the possibility to make the cars and trucks and sell them and make a marketplace above your substructure. I don't know if this idea is clear and if it makes sense.
I think Daddy's got something to say.
Well, the thing that's just my opinion replying to you in this case. In an ideal world, I think that would be the best way to go. But what I see in practice would be that if you have this happening, that you have this amazing base, physics-wise, if you have a really good modeling program that allows you to program anything you want, the thing is you'll get mods and people say, oh, this mod is amazing, oh, it's such good, inverted commas, quality. Well, while at the same time, if you're not having a deal like Kunos has with the SRO, where are people getting their data from? How can you say it's good or bad, or if it's reliable to the real car, if people are just bringing it out of their bag, to not say something else?
Yeah, Danny, that is true, but you also have to remember that, for example, when it was with the first Assetto Corsa, for example, they used to license to get single license for specific cars and trucks. But in this case, let's talk about cars, because for trucks it's easy to have data. Pretty much all of the trucks are laser scanning their facility, so that can be kind of easier today. With cars, yeah, you can license the car, get the data from the manufacturer, but who tells you that they are giving you precise data and exact data? Because, for example, as it was
data.
for a
It's pronounced data, by the way.
Data.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
As it was for the first Assetto Corsa, there were some cars that, even though they were licensed, the manufacturer gave vague data because of competitive reason. They were racing cars, so they couldn't expose themselves too much. So what is the point of having a licensed car that is still based on vague and generic data? So that's why my idea of making just an engine for modders to express. And if you follow modders on RaceDepartment, you know that despite the platform they're working on, Earth Factor, Assetto Corsa, AMS1, they are very resourceful. And sometimes even more, they care for details even more than developers, than official developers sometimes. So I don't think that will be that much of a problem. It wouldn't be as accurate as ACC, for the reason both Paul were explaining, but it will be just as good as a generic sim with multiple series.
Yeah, that I can agree, because nothing will be. Maybe I just had some bad experiences with some mods in the past. That's probably why I always have I look with always some suspicion when I see people saying, "Oh, this mod is amazing. It's so realistic, quality."
I drives me nuts when people do that, because especially if it's a kind of, to Paul's point earlier on, where it's fantasy one. So I know there's a mod out there for F1 2021, to add the new cars into Assetto Corsa. Now I know it's by Sim Racing Studio that. Oh, excuse me. have got a good pedigree with their mods, but how do they know how that car is going to handle? Surely they don't have the data.
They looked at the official rules book and...
Yeah, but it only tells you so much, though.
And every Formula One car is so different from each other. In the 10 cars. So, and the technology is so in depth, like we can't even believe. And I'm sure there's no. I would say, like with putting my thumb in my finger in the air to get a feeling of a rough number. Yeah. I would say that the current sim engines, G motors and ACCs, maybe ACC maybe it's not the case, but like let's say R Factors and AMS2s, they probably simulate like. Engineering wise, maybe I'd say 20% of what is possible to engineer from a car, especially in high-tech stuff like Formula One. There's no way you can simulate to detail hybrid systems into a game and how they work.
Hey guys, I just had a thought. Hold on just a second. Hey, Mr. Jeffrey, are you still awake?
No.
You've been unusually quiet for you.
I've kind of said all my piece now, so enjoying listening to the banter.
And it's nice to actually hear Danny and Davide talk for once, isn't it?
Thanks, man. Appreciate that.
Thanks, guys, for letting us talk for once.
Hey, can I mute you? No, I can't. But yeah, I mean...
Can I say something?
Yeah, you can. I'm conscious we're getting on, so we kind of need to start thinking about bringing this to a close.
Just a quick thought. This is not to give any publicity to Sim Racing Studio, of course. Race Sim Studio, well, you know, the makers of the Formula Hybrid mods for Assetto Corsa. It's just a general thought. Again, going with my thinking of modders being precise, knowing their stuff around, and so giving you, when they are quality modders, a pretty good product. When they made the original Formula Hybrid, I believe, or the second one, every time Max Verstappen was training at home in his own simulator, and sometimes even in other videos for other challenges, he was using to train the Formula Hybrid and not, something licensed or something from some other developer that made some car himself. He was using that mod. So that what I'm trying to say is that if an F1 driver tries and train with that car, it means that it is what he believes it's as close as possible to what he's actually driving on track. And it comes from modders. So I would trust a platform where a modder says, okay, I'm gonna make this series, I'm gonna sell it for let's say 30 euros. I know the team that is making that mod. I would buy it. Of course, it will be 100% precise, 100% spot on, but it will be certainly very, very good, because we live in a point where professional drivers train with mod cars.
Yeah.
Sometimes instead of official cars. So that for me says it all about the quality of mods nowadays.
Well, Formula 1 I understand, but GT3s, well, I guess not everybody's on ACC yet, but...
Hey, Daniel, stop annoying me, okay? Stop annoying me!
All right, bye-bye.
Sorry.
Now, for example, well, if you have, for example, actually it's a good crossover, there's Nicky Thiem, the Danish driver who's won Le Mans and so on. He plays mostly on iRacing from what I know, but he's tried ACC. I don't know if he plays just solely ACC now, or maybe just keeps on iRacing because that's what he's used to, or the competition side is good there. I don't know, but yeah, it can be a matter of preference. And of course, at the end of the day, we're always just playing games. We can't find the super realism. But again, yeah, you're right. It depends on what people think is the best for them at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a mate of mine that thinks the handling ACC is rubbish. Well, he doesn't know what he's talking about. So that's another thing, isn't it? Everyone's entitled to an opinion, but any opinion that differs to mine is wrong. So there we go. Right.
I don't think that's how it goes.
And that should be the title. That should be the title of this podcast.
Well, yeah. Okay. Yeah, we'll make. Yeah, everyone else's opinion doesn't matter. Maybe, I don't know.
Clickbait article, excellent.
Yeah. Clickbait podcast.
What do you call a clickbait podcast title? Is it a listen bait?
Clickbait. It's still clickbait.
Download bait.
Oh, yeah, download
Don't
bait.
be surprised if we don't get any downloads with that title.
Well, obviously, our downloads are a little bit down because I had to broke the last feed, but they're not terrible. So hopefully people will get back up and we'll be back up to our original numbers. Okay, great. I think we kind of talked that one to death a little bit. So yeah, I think that brings the main topic to close. Some worthy mentions: Tony Stewart's sprint car racing game has new patches released. Honestly, it doesn't appeal to me, but I can see why other people might like that game. The one I'm kind of curious about is Monster Truck Championship. That looks like it could be a little bit of fun. I remember when, I know it's more American, isn't it, Monster Trucks, but I remember them being on over here. And as a kid, I remember, loving Bigfoot. Must remember Bigfoot. The
Bigfoot
truck
was awesome. That's the Big Four, isn't it?
Yeah.
See, I used to like Gravedigger.
Nah, Gravedigger. It's all about the Gravedigger.
Gravedigger's epic.
Gravedigger, yeah.
That's the one that had like the skull and crossbones thing. That came to my local shopping centre once, Gravedigger, and it did like a little demonstration thing in the car park years ago, like 20 years ago now. And I can still remember that clearly. That was epic how big they are. I stood next to the tyre and I was like half as big as the tyre. And the tyres, they're like only half the size of the vehicle anyway. Wow. Good stuff.
I'm just watching as you're talking about, Gravedigger is still about, and there was an event in Cardiff in 2019.
Gravedigger's still around? Wow, cool.
Just really depresses. The crowd's absolutely awful at the event. Like, there's loads of empty seats, but
it's more an American thing.
It
though,
is,
like
yeah,
you said.
yeah.
It's not really over here.
If you're not completely, this kind of thing reminds you of Nitro Circus. Have you guys ever watched Nitro Circus?
I'm aware of it, but I've never watched a full show.
Only bits, not a full show.
Okay, so it's a TV show that started out on MTV where these guys do stupid stunts. You've got I forget the guy's name, Street Bike someone. He's Travis Pastrana's mate, and one of the famous clip on the internet is where Travis Pastrana's got one of those big foam pits. So a jump in his property, and his mate literally rides like a road bike, jumps up, and then goes over the pit and lands on like the ground, like a ridiculous, stupid thing to do. But like that's how I got introduced to Nitro Circus. They watched everything, and then I've been to their shows twice at the O2 in London, and seeing that kind of stuff up front is just amazing. Like it's just the nuts. So the stunts they do, from the sublime to the most ridiculous, and they just unfortunately, one of the guys that was in it lost his life. I think about a year and a half ago now. He was a parachuter. I forget his name. But yeah, just seeing that Monster Jam stuff just makes me think of Nitro Circus. So if you've never watched it, I highly recommend it. They just love pushing the boundaries of what you should be doing. But anyway, that was a complete sidestep. And another word we mentioned is GT Sport had a recent addition of 3 new cars. And then we talked about it in the last episode, podcast race. I talked about having some technical difficulties. I've worked through some of the technical difficulties now, which I've made some improvements. I've hit another technical snag, and I haven't done any more tests for at least a couple of weeks. So apologies, but with the current situation, I'm hoping that I can work through those soon. Davide?
Yeah, you didn't tell that the main technical difficulty is that you are too slow. You don't want
Davide
to.
hasn't bought the ACC
Yeah,
yet.
I know. I mean, you can't throw those spears at me. You don't even own the game. Yeah.
I do.
Anyway.
I'll do it anyway.
Nice.
So yeah, so more tests needed. Paul and I've actually been hosting. I've hosted one ACC event, club racing event at Suzuka the other week. So, and Paul joined in. Paul, how good was that?
Absolutely epic.
It was brilliant.
60 minutes, beautiful track, a beautiful sim, nice grid full of good, fair, respectable
drivers,
well-behaved drivers.
I mean, the disappointing factor of it was we had 22 signed up, and only 12 appeared. So I had to send some warnings to people because we have rules at Race Department. If you're not going to make the event, doesn't matter if you got to let us know. It's a respect thing, and also if we do have a full grid, then it gives us the opportunity to offer spots to other drivers. So, but that aside, I mean, I had I qualified 7th, had a really good start, found myself in 4th. I was actually just keeping to the back of Mr. Jeffrey, just about. But then, after a few laps in, it started to rain, and that was epic. Like, I was having a really good battle with a Ferrari in the rain, and I was laughing. And then I was doing all right, and then I I basically broke the speed limit in the pits and had to do a 30-second stop and go. And that kind of put an end to my race, but I kept going because it was absolutely fun. And like you say, Paul, everybody was respectful of the limits.
Oh, yeah.
And
Brilliant.
some great racing. And couldn't do one the weekend just gone because I was working. So I'm doing one this week, and we're where are we? We're
Hungaroring.
Hungaroring, yes. But we're doing a 90-minute race, so an hour and a half this time, which I'm really looking forward to because I think the 60 minutes is just a little bit easy to decide what you want to do with the pits, and I think this a 90-minute race just kind of tweaks that a little bit. So,
but with the pit at Suzuka, we had the 10-minute pit window, so a mandatory pit stop in a 60-minute race. And then the rain came down after about 10 minutes, but the pit window didn't open until 30 minutes in. So it's 20 minutes trying to survive on slicks, keep enough life and heat in the tyres, keep it on the track and keep pushing forward. That was such an exciting time because my tyres went completely blue, which means all temperature's gone. And I'm thinking, do I pit? Is it worth it? But the guy in front of me, I was fighting for the lead with this other guy who's unfortunately, his name I forgot now, but great driver. And he's not pitting, so I'm not pitting.
Yeah, and I didn't pit because you guys didn't pit. Yeah.
Oh, so much fun.
That was great.
Then coming out on cold wets, and then towards the end of the race, it dried up. So the last 10 minutes is just trying to keep your tyres alive and hunting for moisture. Wow.
So the reason that I got the penalty in the pits was I decided to just because I wasn't doing terribly, but I decided to go back onto dry tyres just to see, whether I could pull some positions back, and then just messed it up. But prior to that. I felt really decent on the wet, but like I said to you last night when we were practicing for Hungaroring, I tweaked, I increased the traction control on the car, and you were right, the car did bog down from time to time, but I found that was a good balance with me staying on the track, and then I was still fast in the Ferrari in front of me. I made a couple of moves in the wet, which was my heart was going at that time, as you can probably imagine, but what was I going to say? Oh yeah, when we pitted for wet, I came out and I had zero grip, absolutely nothing.
Outlap and the next couple of 3 laps were a little bit dicey.
But the car behind me had a lot more grip, and so I lost the position literally on that lap coming out of the pits.
But I think there's sort of the takeaway from it is first time I've club raced for a couple of years at least. I forgot just how good it is. And it's easy to forget how good it is, but the quality, when I say quality, I'm not talking about speed, I'm talking about the behaviour of the drivers.
The respectfulness,
fabulous. I mean, I got lucky that 2 guys I were racing with, both in front of me, were roughly about the same kind of speed, so I was not accommodating for them into braking zones. I was braking at the maximum point I can brake. They were doing the same, and we were just literally millimetres apart all lap, but pushing to your absolute limit. Because you know what it's like when you're racing on public servers or with a mixed bag of drivers who aren't too serious. You've got to brake 50 yards earlier than you would do normally to account for different closing speeds and them doing stupid stuff. And more often than not, if I'm on a public server, the way I overtake is show my nose, watch them crash and then drive past. But here, you can go too wide for 3 or 4 corners because people are respectful and behave properly. You can push to your limit and know that they're not going to do something bonkers, or know that they're not going to defend in the braking zone, do stupid stuff like that. It's a really damn good sim, and that was a really well simulated version of a real life race for me. It was some of the best fun I've had for a long time, and I'm hoping for the same again at Hungaro Ring, so please do get signed up for that one, people.
So this Saturday, which is the 21st, 8 p.m. UK time, so that's when practice starts. So if you're not a premium member, or you are a premium member, or if you're not a premium member, sign up for premium, come and join us. If you are a premium member, and you've got ACC, get your name down. So hopefully we'll have another great spectacular race, and the weather is on random, so it could be dry, it could do the same they did at Suzuka. I mean, when I joined the practice server the other night, it was absolutely chucking it down, and the car was just spinning all over the place. So part of me maybe wants just to make it dry, just to keep it nice and simple and have a straightforward race. But then a part of me was like, I can't enjoy the element of the rain kicking in. So,
it'll be fun.
And
whatever
I've
the weather.
I've seen that Ricardo signed up. So, interesting times. So. Yeah, interesting. I'll see Danny.
Come on, Danny, get your name down. Get your name down, man. Let's have an RD massive.
I would tell Davide to sign up, but we know that's just pointless. So
no, Davide's waiting for it to go on sale so he can buy it and then refund it and then buy it back for full price later.
A black market.
Yeah. Davide's the only guy in the world that buys a game on early access for like 3 pence and then decides to refund it and wait until it's 50 quid and then rebuy it.
I had my reasons, okay? I had my reasons.
It's all about supporting the developer. Good man.
Okay, and then one last thing before we do the usual bits is you probably noticed that at RaceDepartment.com a couple of weeks ago there was an announcement that was made by Bram with regards to simracing.gp. And the reason we haven't talked about it in great detail is we have a special podcast that we will be doing. So if you've seen the announcement, if you haven't, go and check it out on RaceDepartment.com. But I'm not going to tell you anything about it because that'll be in the main podcast that we do. But if you have any questions, there is a thread that's been created in the simracing.gp forum at RaceDepartment.com where you can ask your questions. So the more we have, the more questions we can put and we can get answered for you. I know there are a lot of questions. It's got a lot of huge potential. It's very, very exciting. And I hope that it will be a huge success going forward. So I don't know. We were thinking about recording the other week, but we haven't yet. So basically, I'm trying to make Bram get a decent microphone before we record it. So
also stop walking around throwing rocks at pieces of metal, which he seems to tend to do.
Yeah.
But Bram seems to just, I don't know what the background noise is, but he likes to walk around on his phone a lot, and then it seems like he's just throwing pea gravel at washing machines all the way through.
Yeah. So he needs to understand good quality audio means something. So, and I know he listens, so he'll hear this. So this is great. Hi, Bram. Love you really. Please don't hurt me. Don't forget Racing Club at Race Department, which we just talked about, and like I say, we've had some great races, and I am hosting some ACC events. I was going to host some R Factor 2 events, but I'm loving ACC so much, I'm not going to bother. I'll leave that to Damien. Come and check. I'll be doing most Saturdays when I can, and I suspect with the quarantine coming into effect and everything else all over Europe and probably now in the UK, they'll be there for the foreseeable future. Paul, any videos coming soon?
Well, I am now sporting the new microphone, boom arm and pop shield, so hopefully the audio is much better. So I've had a few personal issues to get through, which I'm working my way slowly and surely through. So once they're out of the way, I will kick back off again, but we're not quite there yet.
Sweet.
But
okay,
soon.
Don't forget, you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and and Facebook. And you can also check us out at RaceDepartment.com. For the socials, just search for Race Department and you'll find us. This has been a really long podcast, so we need to go. Davide, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You stay safe now, won't you?
Yeah.
Look after yourself.
Yeah. To all of the listeners, love you guys. Stay safe too in these troubled times, and it will be better. All will be good. Don't worry.
Prime Minister of this island
and Danny boy,
realized it's time to stay home. So
same
maybe
to you, fella. Thanks for joining and be safe. And Mr. Jeffrey, thanks once again. And
yes,
and you look after yourself too.
Thank you, mate. You too. And to echo Davide's comments, everybody out there, hearts are with everybody affected by this. Stay safe. Do the right things. Clean your hands. Avoid social interaction, etc. And to the UK government, for the love of God, please close the bloody schools, you stupid clowns. Why are we sending kids still to school?
Now it's going political. Now it's going political. We don't do political. So.
It's not political, it's just mocking idiots. Big, gormless, bumbling turd. Close things, for Christ's sake. And otherwise, peace and love to all concerned.
Yeah, just to echo what Davide and Paul said, we are in an unprecedented time right now, so we were conscious wanting to get a podcast out to feel like some kind of normality, and there's a lot of pressure. I mean, I've got some troubles at work from this, and there's a lot going on, and sim racing is a great way to kind of get away from that, and this podcast for me, even though I have to deal with these three idiots, is a great part of getting away from real life at the moment, I think. So do listen to your authorities, do what they say.
Yeah, man, shops are
stay
empty.
away from your
I don't understand.
elders, think about others. As Paul said,
stop buying bug rolls.
Yeah, stop buying. What is that all about?
What is the crap with that?
It doesn't give you the craps. I mean, what the hell? Like, I can understand if everyone was getting diarrhea, but it doesn't give you diarrhea.
I've seen a cool pic of a guy that basically stockpiled on it, and he took a picture and he titled it "White Gold."
Ridiculous.
Honestly, it's worth more than cash nowadays. Toilet roll,
it is absolutely ridiculous. But wash your hands. Hygiene's really important right now, guys and girls. So please. Stay safe. It will blow over, and what more can I say? Just listen to the advice and try not to believe everything you read on social media. Go sim racing. Well.
That's it.
All right. There's a lot of people out there.
Keep calm and go sim racing.
So just for the sake of it, God knows why. Right. I can see people want to talk, but we're really bringing this to the end. So, sorry. Yeah, go sim racing. One last word, Paul, from you. Hello, Paul, from you.
I dropped my mouse. I found it again. Peace and love to all concerned, and until next time. Ta-ta.
Davide?
Yeah.
Just, guys, be safe, as we've said, and remember to keep also everyone around you safe. In these times.
Yeah, indeed.
See you on track.
See you on the black stuff, yeah?
If you guys are good, I'll buy ACC and race with every one of you. But nobody wants to race with me, but
Well, we want to race you because we'll all beat you, because you'll be rubbish. Right. On that bombshell, as Jeremy Clarkson would say. Thanks for listening. I've been Paul Glover. This has been the Race Department podcast. Cheerio.